This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Hello, it's Paul Wheelock and welcome to the Debrief to react to Liverpool's 4-1 win over Aston Villa's kids in tonight's FA Cup third round tie. I say kids because Villa's lineup consisted of 7 under-23 players and 4 under-18s after the club's entire first team squad went into isolation after a significant coronavirus outbreak. So in that respect, Liverpool couldn't win tonight. An emphatic victory was the least that was expected. And at one point, it didn't look like that was going to play out as a very strong red side went into the break level at 1-1 after Louie Barry cancelled out Sadio Mane's early opener. But with Thiago, Xherdan, Shaqiri and Roberto Firmino on as subs and Villa's youngsters tiring understandably, Liverpool eventually ran out 4-1 winners with 3 goals in 6 minutes from Gini, Wijnaldum, Mane with his second and Mohamed Salah. I'm joined by my blood red colleague, Matt Addison. Matt, what was your verdict on what you've just seen?
It's almost impossible to analyse it, isn't it? Because, as you say, obviously, we knew going into the game that Liverpool almost certainly were going to win. Anything other than that would be, the biggest FA Cup shock there's ever been. First half, they made, real hard work of it. I know Aston Villa didn't have loads of chances, but the goal that they did have, they took it really well. It was a perfect pass. It was a perfect finish, but Liverpool just far from at it and looking, similarly lacking in creativity, really, as they have done for the last 2 or 3 games. So it was a bit of a concern. I think you always knew at half-time that they'd find a way to get through it, and you always felt confident that they would win the game. But, Thiago and Shaqiri came on, they changed the game, and I think that is what Liverpool have been lacking, really, just that extra little bit of quality in the final third. And it was Shaqiri, I think 2 assists in 280 seconds or whatever it was in that second half. I mean, that was, when the game changed, and partly that was down to the fact that Aston Villa's, kids managed to tire themselves out with the work that they'd put in. But, for Liverpool, it was just about having that extra pass. And thankfully, Shaqiri was the one who was able to provide that.
We'll come to Thiago and Shaqiri and the positives of the second half in a moment, Matt, but we'll just stick with that first half because how concerning was it? In isolation, it's only 45 minutes for football, and let's face it, Liverpool, they couldn't win tonight. They really couldn't win. Beat Villa easy, and everyone say they expected it. If they would have struggled to a 2-1 win, they would have come in for a lot of criticism. But if you don't take it in isolation and put it in the context of what we've seen recently against Southampton, West Brom, and Leicester, so Newcastle, is there still reason for concern going into this big United game next weekend?
I think there very much is. I mean, I think, it just in terms of that creativity, the fact that Liverpool haven't been having too many shots on target, too many sort of clear-cut opportunities of late, that did seem to continue, as I say, until Xherdan and Shaqiri came onto the pitch. Now, obviously, Thiago had an impact as well, but looking ahead to that Manchester United game, you can't really see a situation where Shaqiri would start that game as well as he did tonight. I think it goes without saying that Thiago Alcantara will play as long as he is still fit at that moment in time. But you'd imagine it would be that 4-3-3 with Wijnaldum and Henderson either side of Thiago and the usual front three up there. So I think it's a big ask for Liverpool to sort of change around this form. I think Manchester United will give them chances because of the way that they play. I think they will come to Anfield and try and attack and leave a few gaps. But it is going to very much be on Wijnaldum and Henderson to create opportunities and help link that midfield to the attack when Manchester United come to Anfield. So I think there is still a big question to be asked, even though, Liverpool have gone on and scored, more than enough goals to make this game safe in the end. It wasn't completely convincing in the way that they performed. And, obviously, as I say, we knew that Liverpool were going to win tonight. We pretty much expected that it would be at least a 3-goal margin, if not more than that. But I think what you were looking for really was a bit more fluidity, a bit more creativity and just getting back into that groove. And I really don't think we saw that. I know there was a goal for Salah, there was a couple for Mane, but I didn't think either of them played particularly well. And that's what we wanted to see tonight, was that those wide players in particular, but the whole Liverpool team as well, were to get themselves back into that groove. And I don't think they quite did that despite the scoreline.
You'll remember the form of the last 2 seasons Liverpool have displayed as being absolutely remarkable. And, despite this bit of a blip they're still going through, and I think you'd include tonight's result in it, they're still top through to the 4th round of the FA Cup, through to the knockout stages of the Champions League. And I know you said there next weekend against Manchester United, you wouldn't imagine someone like a Shaqiri would start. would you actually think it's getting to maybe a bit of a stage in the season where the lineup should be freshened up a little bit for the big games, if not United, maybe the ones to come after it, at Burnley or Tottenham or whoever Liverpool get in the fourth round of the FA Cup?
Yeah, I certainly think in the games going forward, I mean, we hope to see Diogo Jota as well back at some point, possibly by the end of the month, certainly into February, you'd think. So I think he would be, a big player for Liverpool. I think they've missed him massively. I wrote a piece this week that said he's been a bigger miss than Van Dijk really for Liverpool, which sounds like a big claim, but when you go through it and you look at the goals that Liverpool have conceded, they've tended only to concede 1 or 0 in the Premier League since Van Dijk has been out. In fact, they haven't conceded more than once in that spell, but they have lacked a little bit of creativity, and some games that maybe last season would have finished 2 or 3-1 to Liverpool have finished 1-1 and things like that. So I think Shaqiri will have a role to play in that going forward, particularly against a team like Burnley. You'd imagine maybe Jota won't be back for that one, but Shaqiri certainly I think should have his eye on that one to come into the side and maybe go to a 4-2-3-1, maybe go for it a little bit more, because again, it's one of those teams. I think Burnley's the game after Manchester United, isn't it? So that's going to be the first sort of test of how far Liverpool have progressed over the sort of couple of weeks between the difficult period they've just had and then that Manchester United game in the next one. I think Manchester United will be a different one. They're not just going to come and sit in as a Southampton did, or a Newcastle or a West Brom or a Burnley will do. But I think it's one certainly to look at going forward. I think for me, Xherdan Shaqiri coming into the side it's an absolute no-brainer against a team that's going to sit in, because we've seen, Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold haven't been at their best, and without that creativity, Liverpool have really looked to be lacking something.
The great thing for Liverpool, they've got a very creative player to come into the team. We've seen him for 45 minutes tonight. Thiago again. We've got to put it into the context that he was up against players who were getting dropped off by their mum and dad before the start of the game because some of them can't drive. But Thiago, you can only beat what's in front of you, and I thought he was exceptional for 45 minutes. He's a real player, isn't he? You can understand why Liverpool fans were so excited in the summer saga before he actually signed for the club, and they've been so excited to see him back in the team after his injury problems.
Yeah, I mean, he's just jaw-droppingly good, isn't he? Whatever he just does it with so much class, and you could just watch him play those little balls where he looks one way, plays the ball the other. You could just watch that all day, couldn't you? Just on repeat, one after the other, and I think, yeah, he's obviously been a huge miss for Liverpool in the first few months of the season. It sounds strange to say it because, of course, they've done so well in previous seasons when he didn't even play for Liverpool, but just to have that extra composure, the extra pass, I think we saw, along with Shaqiri in the second half, just what a huge impact he's made. And I know that people will say you can't really judge him on tonight, but we've seen that from Thiago in other matches as well. We saw him do essentially the same thing as what he did tonight against Chelsea. So, he can do a very, very similar job against, much better and bigger teams than this. So, yeah, going forward, I think he is going to be the first name on the team sheet for Liverpool. I think as long as he's fit, he's going to be in there. And I think there was a few people maybe criticising Jordan Henderson's performance. I think it's important that we say, I would imagine that Thiago for Henderson was probably a pre-planned change. Yeah. I think it was probably one that no matter what the scoreline was tonight, that would have happened. So, yeah, I would expect Jordan Henderson to be straight back into the team for next weekend. I don't think he did anything particularly wrong compared to the rest of his teammates in that first half. But, yeah, to have Henderson and Thiago in that midfield, I think it can only be a good thing for Liverpool, and it's hugely exciting that this is just the start of his Liverpool career. There's so much more to come from it.
Certainly, yes. Next week we'll be building up to that Manchester United game throughout on the Liverpool Echo's website and on the Blood Red YouTube channel. But just one quick question about it: do you think tonight will restore a little bit of confidence? Because there was no question it had been knocked a little bit. You could see it in the performance at Southampton in particular. It was a bit sluggish. And I know, again, it's Villa's kids tonight, it's the youngsters Liverpool have beat, but 4 goals. And I know you rightly said, Matt, that Salah and Mane didn't look still quite at it. But, they've done the job tonight. Surely they've got this one out of the way. Surely they've got a full 9 days to prepare for United now. They must be feeling a little bit better about themselves.
Yeah, I think so. I think Manchester United, you don't really need any sort of hyping up. I think the players will know what that means. I think they will perform. They will step up and be on a different level just because of what it means and the whole situation around it, particularly with the two teams, obviously, potentially going for the title all the way through this season. I think, United are very much going to be up there. Liverpool are going to have to be on the game. And I'm sure they will be. But I think tonight it's a difficult one. Again, we said it at the start. It's a tough one to assess. I think you said it yourself. Liverpool couldn't really win tonight, even though they've won by a 3-goal margin. People will still talk about the first half not being particularly good. They'll still talk about the fact that Liverpool, if they'd have turned up and played at their best, could have, to be completely honest, could have won that by 10. The golfing class is that much between these two teams, really. So it's a difficult one to know how much confidence they'll take. I think you could certainly see that Salah was getting a little bit frustrated with himself just before he put the ball in the back of the net. I think if he hadn't have scored, I think it would have taken away confidence. I'm just not necessarily sure that by scoring it will have added to it, if you see what I mean. So it's certainly not done anybody any harm, but how much they can take from this, I'm not too sure, because it was a very, very young, inexperienced Aston Villa side, and they did cause them problems and they did get the job done in the end. But there's much bigger and more important things to come for Liverpool.
Yeah, every credit to Villa, by the way. Every credit. It's a bad situation those youngsters have been put in, but I thought they were exceptional tonight, particularly in the first half. But just a final one, Matt, before we go, because we do have Jurgen Klopp coming up soon as his press conference. Jurgen's been accused, I suppose, in recent seasons of disrespecting the FA Cup, given the sides he selected, even though he didn't stop them from beating Everton and Shrewsbury last season. But the one he picked tonight, which, by the way, was picked before the situation with Villa's first team squad became clear, was really strong. Do you think that may indicate he'll be targeting the FA Cup this season?
I don't think it does, to be honest. I think it's one that has been said a few times. I think people have looked at the sort of starting 11 tonight and thought maybe, I think it was suggested several times on commentary as well during the game that, maybe this is a sign that Liverpool are going to take this competition more seriously. But I think if there was another game in 3 or 4 days' time, then Liverpool would have played a completely different team. I think, no matter whether Aston Villa had players missing or not, we would have seen 11 changes. We wouldn't have seen Thiago, Henderson, Salah, Mane. But of course, Liverpool have a 9-day break. They have an opportunity to rest now before Manchester United. And I think it would have just been too long a gap for them not to play a few of these first team stars. So I expected all the time, really, for them to have a strong team. I think the only true answer that we'll get to this question of, how seriously are Liverpool going to take it is in a couple of weeks' time when the next round comes. If Liverpool play a similar team again, then maybe, yes, that's an indicator that, they really want to take this seriously this season. But, I said it on the Blood Red podcast earlier today. I mean, for Liverpool, the FA Cup is very, very much third in their priority list. They have to win the Premier League title. They have to go further in the Champions League than what they did last season. And I think they will do on both of those things. I really, really do. But the FA Cup is a bonus. Of course, if you can win it, and if you do win it, fantastic. But I think for Jurgen Klopp and his players, there are bigger things to think about. I just think tonight was a bit of an exception in that they have a 9-day break now and they could afford to go strong tonight.
We'll be hearing from Jurgen Klopp pretty soon on the Blood Red YouTube channel once he's conducted his post-match press conference from Villa Park, and we'll have loads more content across the weekend for you. But until then, thanks for Matt for joining me, and thanks for you guys at home for listening and watching, and bye for now.
This is the Blood Red Podcast.